We gather at a crucial time for our democracy, a time when the integrity of our electoral process is under serious threat. Recently, I filed a formal complaint against 3 members of the Georgia State Election Board, Janice Johnston, Janelle King, and Rick Jafares, who have violated the very principles they swore to uphold. These violations are not just legal technicalities. They strike at the heart of our democracy and the trust Georgians place in our election system. These individuals have taken deliberate actions that interfere with free and fair elections in our state. They voted for a rule that allows local election officials to delay or even refuse to certify election results, an action that could plunge Georgia into electoral chaos. This is not just unethical, it is illegal. Their actions undermine the will of the people, and we cannot stand idly by while they subvert the democratic process. These MAGA extremists are attempting to legalize voter suppression, and we cannot go back. Moreover, these board members have been caught illegally coordinating with the Georgia Republican Party to advance their partisan agenda. This was done in secret, in violation of the Open Meetings Act, further eroding public trust in our electoral system. They have shown a blatant disregard for the law, and their continued presence on the board places our state in legal and financial jeopardy. The State Election Board does not exist to help Republicans win elections or to enrich its members. Today, I stand before you to demand that Governor Kemp take immediate action. We need a formal investigation into these claims. It's the least he can do and is obligated to do per our state code. And then the facts will show that we need to remove these corrupt board members. The people of Georgia deserve leaders who respect the law, uphold the precious and sacred right to vote, and protect our democracy, not individuals who conspire behind closed doors to disenfranchise voters. So today you will hear from my House colleagues, community and faith leaders from across the state. And as we move forward in this fight, I'm honored to introduce a champion of democracy, my Congresswoman, Congresswoman Lucy McBath. Her dedication and leadership inspire us all, and it is my privilege to welcome her. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Good morning. And thank you, Senator Islam Parks, for your kind words and for your initiative. I am so grateful for your leadership and all of the leaders that stand with me here, but your leadership in the State Senate, and I always continue to stand up and fight with you in Washington, as I know you were doing right here in the state of Georgia. And I know Leader Butler could not be here with us today, but I just want to say thank you to her for her tireless advocacy in the Georgia State Senate. Our state is undoubtedly stronger and more resilient because of Senator Butler's leadership. And I'm so thankful that I've been able to see her work up close and to learn from her directly. I'd also like to thank Representative Park, Representative Draper, and everyone who is joining us here today. These are phenomenal leaders in the state of Georgia that are standing up and leading on behalf of our communities. The fight for equal rights is personal to me. Growing up, my father led the Illinois branch of the NAACP. I saw up close every single day as he and my mother sacrificed day after day after day to ensure that we were treated equally under the law. My parents believed in their shared stakeholdership over America, that though they had not been born with the same rights and the same privileges as other Americans, they owed their diligence and wits to ensure that no Americans' voice would be left out or left behind in the decision-making process. And my parents weren't alone. Countless Americans marched, they fought, and they perished to uphold the principles of this nation. Thanks to all of their efforts, each succeeding generation has pushed the front line forward. Make no mistake, what is unfolding in Georgia is nothing less than a concerted effort to subvert democracy and move us backwards. In the last decade, Georgia has seen folks like Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, and Stacey Abrams work to lay the groundwork and change our state. Georgia made history by sending a Democrat to the White House, and not one, but 2 Democratic senators to Capitol Hill. The people of Georgia spoke out. We spoke out against hate, against divisive rhetoric. We stood together to say unequivocally, we deserve better. In direct response, we've witnessed something much more sinister. We saw numerous efforts to silence our voices, to silence us at the ballot box. Republicans passed restrictions on ballot access throughout our entire state, making it harder to vote, especially in communities of color. And in 2022, Donald Trump blatantly attempted to reverse the results of our election, something we are used to seeing in dictatorships throughout the world, but not here at home, not here in Georgia. Federally, we've introduced the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to codify election protections into law. But those seeking to tear our democracy down have worked to stop it at every step of the way. Now, here at home, here in Georgia, the Georgia State Elections Board is becoming an equal co-conspirator in this effort to suppress our votes. With passing this new rule, they are creating barriers to counting votes and certifying the elections, so Donald Trump can once again attempt to throw our country into chaos. We are here today to say we are better than this. One of the most basic responsibilities of our government is to ensure the process of free and fair elections. As Americans, we must defend and protect our democracy to ensure the voices of the people are heard, not some voices, but all voices. Today, I am joining my esteemed colleagues in calling for Governor Kemp to hold members of the State Elections Board accountable, to stand up for the rule of law, and to ensure that our democratic process is protected. He must not allow our State Elections Board to be taken over by Donald Trump. Because if we fail to protect our state democracy, our sacred democracy, we will risk falling into chaos. Thank you.
My name is Wayne Kendall. I'm an attorney here in the state of Georgia. I have the honor and the privilege of coming before you this morning to bring attention to what we consider to be a grave injustice perpetrated on the voters in the state of Georgia by 3 members of the State Election Board, Janice Johnston, Janelle King, and Rick Jafares. I have also the privilege of standing before you and these elected leaders, community leaders, and religious leaders to bring attention to what we consider to be several ethics violations by these 3 particular members who have demonstrated a concerted effort and a desire to be hell-bent on subverting the election laws of the state of Georgia through these rules and regulations that they have recently passed after election officials have asked them to stop and halt what they have considered to be a concerted effort to inject confusion and chaos into the election machinery of the state of Georgia. First, we have a violation of the Open Meetings Act, whereby these three members initiated a meeting on July the 12th to institute several rules and regulation changes that were given to them by the Republican Party of Georgia, which had never been sent through the process, the original and a proper process, which is called for by the Open Meetings Act, which involves notice of the proposed changes, that involved posting of these changes on the website, and involved sending out notices to all the constituents, including the public and other members of the State Board of Elections. They failed to uphold the laws. The state ethics law requires that all members of boards, commissions, and authorities should uphold the laws of the state of Georgia. And when members of the state election board take it upon themselves to totally ignore the advice of counsel, the state law department, which advised them that the meeting that they held on July the 12th was an illegal meeting, then these particular individuals have shown a disdain and a desire to violate the law, that they should be called upon to resign their positions. And if they don't resign their positions, then the governor has an absolute duty under the State Ethics Act to remove these particular individuals from office. Three persons, Kathy Willard, Randall Mangum, who is a candidate for District 55, Senate District here in the state of Georgia, and Senator Nabila Islam Parks, has called on the governor to remove these particular individuals for violations of state law. The governor should forthwith act to remove these rogue members of his party from the election board here in the state of Georgia. We call upon him to do so, and we call upon him to do so forthwith. The law requires him to hold a hearing, and what has been the practice in the past is that he would refer those complaints over to the State Office of Administrative Hearings for them to appoint an administrative law judge, and for that law judge to hold a hearing to inquire into the facts and the evidence to make a determination as to whether a recommendation should be made to the governor to remove these particular individuals from office. We think that with all of the media attention that has been brought to bear, the facts that have been put forth, the emails that have been uncovered, which indicate that these individuals are more or less pursuing an agenda of partisan political motives, that they should be removed from office and should be removed from office forthwith. So we call attention to those complaints. We ask the governor to forthwith go forward and hold a hearing, send this matter over to the Office of Administrative Hearings for an administrative law judge to be appointed, and for these particular three complaints to be heard, and to be heard before the November election, so that these particular individuals can stop the chaos and the confusion that they are engendering into the election machinery of the state of Georgia. Thank you.
All right.
Good morning. My name is Sam Park, and I serve as whip of the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. As you all may know, 3 pro-Trump, anti-democracy members of Georgia State Election Board are overstepping their authority by changing our election rules. After Trump praised them, they passed new rules that can enable Trump and his allies to obstruct certification of Georgia's 2024 election results. One new rule gives partisan county election officials more power and allows them to delay or block certification of election results if they disagree with the outcome. This directly conflicts with Georgia law, which states that local election officials shall perform their duties, making their responsibilities mandatory, not discretionary. House Democrats have urged Speaker John Burns to remove Trump-aligned Janelle King from the election board. Time is running out, and we've received no response. So now we are escalating our concerns by calling on Governor Kemp to investigate election board members Jeffries, Johnston, and King for potential conflicts of interest, ethical issues, and unlawful actions that raise serious concerns about the integrity of Georgia's election administration. Georgia law grants Governor Kemp the authority to investigate and remove election board members if they violated the law. Even though Governor Kemp supports Trump for president, he should agree Trump should win Georgians' votes fair and square. Again, even though Governor Kemp supports Trump for president, he should agree Trump should win Georgians' votes fair and square. In the face of this threat to the fair and lawful administration of Georgia elections, Governor Kemp must investigate these members and set an administrative hearing as soon as possible. As we know, democracy dies in darkness, so thank you to members of the press for highlighting this ongoing attack against our right to have our vote counted. To my fellow Georgians concerned about the brazen attempts to undermine election administration, the best way to counter these undemocratic, un-American efforts is to turn out and vote in numbers that leave no room for doubt. Now is a time to organize, volunteer, and most importantly, vote. We are 70 days away from Election Day. Talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors, especially those who don't usually vote. In the words of John Lewis, the vote is the most powerful, nonviolent change agent we have in a democratic society. We have the power to protect our democracy one vote at a time, and we must use it. With that, I will turn it over to Representative Syra Draper. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Syra Draper, and I'm the state representative for House District 90 in Atlanta. The Georgia State Election Board no longer works in service to Georgians or in furtherance of fair and free elections. The State Election Board has been taken over by far-right MAGA extremists. The new majority is made of Trump loyalists, people willing to ignore the Constitution, fairness, and facts, if that means getting Donald Trump back in power. Their strategy is clear. They will continue to make 11th-hour changes, and when something goes wrong, no matter how minor, they will point to the errors as justification for questioning any election results they do not like. And simultaneously, State Election Board is loudly signaling to their MAGA allies at the county level that they should delay or refuse to certify election results, a move that will inflame passions, that will sow distrust, and that could even foment violence, just as Donald Trump's false claims of a stolen election led to an insurrection at the Capitol. I want to be very clear about what this all boils down to. You've got three hyper-partisan, unelected individuals executing a plan to nullify the votes of millions of Georgians if Kamala Harris wins our state. We are talking about a level of mass disenfranchisement that demands immediate action and condemnation from Georgia's leaders. And yet, so far, we have been met with silence. Here's what I want to say directly to Republican leadership in this state. You got us into this mess. Now you need to have the courage to get us out. We would not be in this precarious position with a MAGA election deniers in control of the State Election Board had Republicans not totally capitulated to the far right. And what do I mean by that? Republicans passed legislation to kick the Secretary of State off of the State Election Board. The governor signed that bill into law. The Speaker of the House folded under pressure, not to reappoint his former appointee to the state election board, someone who respected the rule of law, and he replaced that member with the far right's pick, giving MAGA the majority. And Republicans have largely remained silent as the SEB passes illegal rules, as members attend Trump rallies, and as they disclose that they have pecuniary interests that can only be realized if Trump wins the presidency. Governor Kemp, you and your party talk a lot about election integrity. Well, Georgians know that the highest form of election integrity is allowing election results to reflect the will of the voters, no matter what that is. The time to take a stand is now.
Good morning. My name is the Reverend Dr. David Alexander from Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta, and on Monday when I opened social media feed and read my state senator, Nabila Islam Parks' letter to Governor Kemp, I knew that we had not just a civil rights issue, a legal issue, but also a moral issue before us. And so we crafted a letter, sent it out to clergy across the state, and I'm proud to be standing here today with clergy from across the city and the state behind me on the steps, representing 97 signatures that have already been added to the letter, and the list is growing. Our letter that we are delivering to the governor today says this: Dear Governor Kemp, we, the undersigned clergy from across the great state of Georgia, write to you out of a deep sense of moral urgency regarding the actions of these members of the Senate Election Board. Specifically, we are requesting the immediate investigation into the actions of the aforementioned members for violation of their statutory code of ethics applicable to state employees, as well as their intentional disregard of the Open Meetings Act. As outlined in the letter your office received from Senator Nabila Islam Parks on August 19th, these violations warrant immediate investigation and corrective action in order to protect the integrity of public trust in our elections. Our concerns extend beyond mere legal violations. We believe these actions strike at the very heart of the democratic process and the sanctity of the voice of the people of Georgia. As clergy, we are tasked with nurturing the spiritual well-being of our congregations, and part of this duty involves standing up for justice, integrity, and the protection of every person's God-given right to be heard.
I'm Reverend Misha Sanders, community minister and chaplain in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, part 2 of this letter drafted by my colleagues. In the ancient Hebrew creation story, the word kol is used for voice, the very essence of divine communication. That same word in modern Hebrew translates to vote. It is no coincidence. We believe that for people created in God's image, which includes all of us, our voice is our vote. When actions are taken to suppress, manipulate, or undermine that voice, it is an affront not only to our democracy, but also to our shared moral values and the inherent spiritual dignity of all citizens. The behavior of the previously named members of the State Elections Board undermines the trust the people of Georgia have placed in their leaders to administer elections fairly and openly. Their violations of transparency and ethical conduct seek to threaten and hinder the true expression of the will of the people and put at grave risk the very integrity of our electoral system.
Good morning. I'm Bishop Sonia E. Williams of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministry South Region and also RIM Fellowship UCC here in Atlanta. We are well aware, as you are, Governor Kemp, of the high stakes of this election and the high tensions in our communities. The nation's eyes will focus squarely on the great state of Georgia in November, and we cannot afford even the smallest implication of bias or unjust handling of our citizens' most sacred right. We ask you, Governor Kemp, as a leader with the responsibility to uphold the principles of fairness and justice, to act in defense of our state's democratic values. We request the immediate removal of these individuals from the SEB in accordance with the law and in alignment with the moral imperative to ensure that every Georgian's voice and their vote and our election integrity is protected. In the spirit of justice and the pursuit of righteousness, we trust you that you will consider this request with the seriousness it demands. Sincerely, Georgia Clergy.
All right, all right.
This concludes our press conference, and we are also open to any questions that the media may have. Per state code, he absolutely has the authority to convene a hearing. Per state code, he absolutely has the authority to convene a hearing. And there's also precedent on former cases as well.
So with respect to the House side, we sent out the letter last week on August 19th to Speaker Burns' office. We have not received any reply yet.
OCGA 4510-4 sets forth the procedure that the governor must follow. He must send a request over to the Office of Administrative Hearings. That office will then appoint an administrative law judge. However, there is no time frame within the statute. This procedure has been adhered to in numerous other cases prior to this case. It's clear the governor has the mandatory requirement to send it over to the Office of Administrative Hearings for the appointment of a administrative law judge. The hearing cannot be held before 30 days notice to the persons who are charged. Yeah, there was a case out of Spalding County involving Oscar Stokes. I know about that case because I'm from Spalding County. I read that case. That case occurred several years ago. I can't tell you the exact date without looking at the case, but that case involved the very same procedure. Oscar Stokes was a member of the school board. He was charged with certain ethical violations. The matter went to the governor's office. The governor appointed an administrative law judge through the Office of Administrative Hearings, and that matter was held. Recommendation was made to the governor.
Well, look, after Trump lost the state in 2020, we saw Republicans in the state legislature pass law after law taking bipartisan local election boards and making them majority Republican. We had never done that before. And now with these new rules, it has set up an unfair advantage for the Republican Party, if they choose to do so, to delay or to deny certification of county election results. And so this has just been a slow process, death by 1,000 cuts, and we are standing here today to object to that and demanding that the governor take action and remove these corrupt election board members.
Oh, that's a good question. These changes that have recently been made were made after persons who are candidates for office qualified to become candidates for office. That's a good question as to whether or not these changes can even apply to those persons after they have basically set forth their course of action to run for office, and then the rules of the game are changed after they became candidates to that particular office. That question is a good question, and it'll have to be answered by a court. Probably there will be an injunction filed that will seek to keep these rules from going into effect at the last minute. And in fact, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State has indicated that these rule changes are misguided. They're being implemented by individuals who are unelected bureaucrats who have no election experience and who refuse to accept the advice of people who do. So there's a good question as to whether or not these rule changes, some of which violates existing state law, should ever be considered in the first place. So there's some questions there. That's a good question. We'll have to answer that through the courts.
So look, I mean, I think what we're calling for is a lowering of the temperature right now to call out these extremists who want to go beyond the law and bring them back within the confines of the law. And what's going to happen is if we don't do that now, before temperatures are even more heightened, we're going to get to election night, and one side's going to be very upset, and one side is going to be very, very happy. And we're going to have even more divide in between the two factions that are in Georgia. That will get even worse. That will be exacerbated if we get into these election certification delays, right? If we start calling into question the results of the election, we saw that plainly in 2020. It will exacerbate the divides that already exist. So we need the governor and Republican leadership to step up, to be the adults in the room, to call out these extremists and tell them what they are doing is wrong. And if they want their candidate to win, then he has to win fair and square. That's what we need.